Hello and welcome to Scale to Seven Figures and our $1 Million Fireside Chat. I am Lisa Anderson, Strategic Business Advisor, Virtual CFO with Anavo Transformation Solutions and your $1 Million mentor. And I am excited you are joining me. Scale to Seven Figures is an interactive group of small business owners in the business to corporate, and business to government markets who are ready to scale their businesses to the next level. Our group is an opportunity to share, learn, and grow together without competition. Each week, I bring tips, tactics, and strategies through our $1 Million Masterclasses and our $1 Million Fireside Chats. If you are not familiar with us, head on over to www.scaletosevenfigures.com and check us out. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy our next powerful conversation. Well, hello everybody, and welcome to today's $1 Million Fireside Chat. I'm excited to have you here with us. As you know, we are streaming across platforms. We're on LinkedIn, we're on YouTube, and we're on Facebook. So please let us know in the chat where you are joining us from. Say hello and let us know what you think of our conversation today. I am Lisa Anderson, Strategic Business Advisor and Virtual CFO with Anavo Transformation Solutions and your $1 Million mentor. And happy Wednesday. Happy Wednesday. And what a special day it is today. Today is my birthday. And I am very, very excited to be here with you today to be sharing this Wednesday, this special day, as I am celebrating also a milestone. It's another trip around the sun, but this is my 55th double nickel trip around the sun. And I'm really, really excited to be here. Many people have said that, this is the birthday. Today is the first time I've heard this. And many of you have probably heard this before, but I'd never heard this before, that this is a speed limit age. This is a speed limit birthday. And I'm going to tell you, for me, it may be the limit that's on the sign, but it's not a limit for me at all, because I am putting the pedal to the metal and I am speeding through the rest of this highway that, I call life. And I'm really excited about it. And birthdays are very special to me. It is in my world and in the world of CEOs that I work with. It is a sacred day and a sacred time. It's the one special day that we have for ourselves. And it's the day that I personally take off. I don't do any work. I didn't do any work today. And some people will say that I'm doing work right now, that, Lisa, you're not working, but you're here. You're doing your live show. This is something that you do every week. But this is my give back to the community. And every year for my birthday, I generally do something that I call random acts of kindness. And because of the pandemic, this year and last year, I haven't really been able to do that. Although today I did give a lot of things to Goodwill. And then I'm doing this. I'm giving back to the community to continue to provide information to help businesses grow to that $1 million mark and beyond, and to continue to build their legacy. So this is my give back. And this is my act of kindness today. While it's not random, it is my act of kindness. So welcome. During the month of April, April is Financial Literacy Month. And all month long, we're talking about money matters, things that matter in your business to help you strengthen your portfolio, to strengthen the asset, and to continue to build upon your legacy. And last week, I talked about the very first phase of the financial aspects or any aspect of building your legacy. And that is envisioning and planning the future. You cannot start the process of building a legacy, of building upon a really good, solid financial asset until you have started to put together that vision of the future on paper, that you start to build out that strategy, that you start to put the objectives in front of you, and that you start to think about your exit strategy, which is one thing that a lot of small business owners don't think about, is their exit strategy. And I like to say that your exit strategy is important in business every single day. from the time you start to the time you exit, your exit strategy is extremely important, because the things that you do in the middle will help guide you to making certain that you achieve that end. So I'm saying this to say, I hope you did the homework. And if you did not listen to us last week, if you didn't join us last week and you're not familiar with what the homework is, check out our YouTube channel at Scale to Seven Figures and do the homework from last week. Check out the video and go through the process and start planning and envisioning, because you cannot move forward effectively. You cannot build the asset of value that you want, that you would like to have in the end, at the end of the road. You don't want, you won't have that value if you haven't started to plan for it. And so I really do beg you to please go back and do that homework. So today we're going to continue the conversation. We're actually going to take it to the next level. And what we're going to be talking about today is financing your legacy. I believe that, it's very important that we have cash flow, that we have access to cash to be able to continue to build upon our legacies, to build value in our businesses, and to continue to execute in business. I don't believe that you should carry a lot of debt. I don't believe in that, but I do believe that you should carry some debt. I do believe that you should partner with other organizations and other individuals to help you continue to grow instead of carrying that burden all alone. I always talk about the fact that building a business is a team sport. And I want you to make certain that when it comes to your financing, that you understand that you need a partner, another component of your team to help engage you in that process. You may not feel like you need the money today, but let me tell you, you will need it one day. There's going to be a time, and probably many times throughout your business life cycle, where you're going to need an infusion of cash. You're going to need a partner that's going to help you with that. So today we're going to talk about ways in which to ensure you have appropriate cash flow. And I have my friend here with me today to talk about alternative financing and some of the things that small businesses may need to consider, especially when they feel as though they don't have adequate or appropriate access to traditional financing. There are options out there, and I want you to hear this conversation today, because my friend Kwesi Rogers is going to demystify the process of utilizing alternative financing and how you can utilize it to help grow your business. So give me a second and help me welcome Kwesi to the show. Hello there, my friend.
Hello, how are you? And happy birthday.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I kept that a secret, right?
You sure did.
Yes, it's my special day, but I'm happy to be here with a special friend having this very special conversation.
I'm humbled to spend the time with you on your birthday.
Yes, well, it's been a great day. I tell you, I've had a chance to spend it with the beneficiaries of my legacy today. So it's a great day.
Well, that's important. That's important.
Indeed it is. I do all this for them, right? At the end of the day, it's for them. So yeah. So tell us, before we dive in, before we go into any further into our conversation, tell us who you are and tell us a little bit about the business that you're in and what you do and who you serve.
So my name is Kwesi Rogers, and I like to tell people that from the time I was 3 years old, I wanted to get into the business of secured lending to help entrepreneurs. But that part's not exactly true. But I did find my way there later in life. I recently established about 14 months ago, Core Capital Corporation. Actually had the opportunity to work for the first time with my spouse. So that's exciting. So like you, we are working together to build for those who we care about most. And I have the opportunity to do that by working with people that I enjoy working with every day, which is the entrepreneurial community, and watching them, or having the opportunity to contribute to the growth and entrepreneurs achieving their objectives over time.
Absolutely. So tell us a little bit about the business itself and what it is that you do specifically to help entrepreneurs.
So Core Capital, at Core Capital, our growth our sort of saying that, or tagline that you'll see on our website, on our emails, on our letterhead is "Come grow with us." And so, Core Capital Corporation is really designed to provide the working capital that an entrepreneur needs in order to meet their growth objectives. So we accomplish that by two products primarily, and that's factoring and asset-based lending.
Awesome. So these are alternative ways of financing, some
Right.
of the what we call non-traditional ways of achieving financing. Can you talk a little bit about what that means, factoring? And I'm sorry, what was the second? You said factoring and asset based. Yeah. Okay. So can you share a little bit about what that means and how that's a little bit different from the traditional financing standpoint?
Sure. So factoring, if you think of a small business, oftentimes, especially startup, they're very focused on obtaining revenue. And at some point in their life cycle, they reach an inflection point, whereas they win a piece of business that represents it's very substantial and represents a lot of growth for that business. Well, when they win that piece of business, they may not have the financing lined up, and oftentimes the first thing an entrepreneur thinks about, or the first place they think to go is the bank. So they oftentimes go to the bank, but the banks being, the highest regulated industry in the country, there's certain parameters, and there's certain parameters that must be in place before they extend a loan to any commercial customer. And sometimes, early stage entrepreneurs just don't fit within that credit box that's established for and by the bank. But yet and still, the entrepreneur still has this opportunity that they've worked hard to obtain. So now they need to figure out how they're going to finance this opportunity. Well, factoring is an avenue that many entrepreneurs use today and have used in the past. It's been around for hundreds of years. And essentially, when a company does some work, oftentimes the most valuable asset on their balance sheet are their accounts receivable. So they've done some work, they're owed some money, and there's value on the balance sheet, but they need cash today. So oftentimes they take those accounts that are valuable and present them to the factoring company. The factoring company will purchase those assets in exchange for the cash that the entrepreneur needs today. And then the factoring company will collect, take a fee out, and remit the balance to the entrepreneur. So as such, factoring provides a mechanism by which the entrepreneur can gain access to capital, and and the amount of capital that they can access will grow in lockstep with their revenue.
Awesome. So when you work with companies from that standpoint, so you're financing the asset that's on the balance sheet, right? The receivables. Mm-hmm. You're taking possession and ownership of the collection of that receivable. Certainly. What types of things are you looking for in the small business owner when they need cash and they to engage with them? What types of things are you looking for? Is it just the balance sheet, or are you looking at other things as well?
Sure. Well, the first thing I generally look at is the credit worthiness of their customer base. Because that is essentially who is going to pay that obligation to liquidate the advances that we've provided. But aside from that, we look at a couple things. We look at the character of the business owner and or the management team. We look at their expertise. Do their antecedents suggest that they have the capability of rendering the services that they're contractually asked to carry out? And then, we like to hear the plan. Is it cohesive? Is it coherent? and can they carry out this plan? Those are some of the things, and then we'll look at obviously what processes and procedures they have in place. What team members, if any, they have in place to assist them with various disciplines within the business.
So when you're looking at the character of the business owner, so I didn't hear this. So if you can share a little bit more insight on this, but when you look at the character of the business owner, are you looking at their credit worthiness, their credit score? I heard you say credit worthiness of the customer.
Credit worthiness of the borrower, of the entrepreneur's customer,
right,
is what I intended to convey. However, we do look at credit of the entrepreneur, but we look at it a little differently than a bank may look at it. We're not exactly credit scoring. I'll give you an example of where we may stray from how the bank will look at it. Obviously, when you start a company, everybody has a plan, and things almost never go according to plan. If I've talked to 1,000 entrepreneurs, 1,000 have told me that no, things did not go according to plan. So things usually take longer than you anticipate, which probably means you've exhausted more money, and it may have an adverse effect on your credit as you're trying to build your business. Obviously, you want to try to avoid that, but I've seen that a lot of times. And I've talked to entrepreneurs one-on-one about those circumstances and situations. And if I feel that the entrepreneur is doing everything in his or her power to make good on the obligations while they grow their business, I may lend to someone with a 400 or 500 credit score, and I've done so. Some people may say that person has bad character. I say, no, that person has bad credit. And they have bad credit, but it's not indicative of their character. Now, if I see someone who they are constantly trying to usurp their obligations, and they wouldn't pay their mother if they owed their mother money to their mother, then I would probably say that person is not of the character of who we'd like to lend to.
Yeah.
And that's how I would differentiate the two.
Okay. So let's go back and dive in a little bit deeper into the credit worthiness of the customer, because I think that, from a traditional lending, that's what we're normally used to, is that, we've got to come to the table. It's got to be squeaky clean. That, we have to show that we don't need the money in order to get the money. Right. All of that has to be in place and in order. But then we have alternative lending, and you are not looking necessarily at some of the traditional things, or maybe you're looking at them a little bit differently. But then there's the credit worthiness of the customer. Can you talk about that a little bit more? Yeah.
Sure. So I can define it I can provide a very short definition. At the end of the day, when an entrepreneur comes to us and shows us or shares a list of accounts with us that they would like to present for financing, at the end of the day, we're looking at those accounts and we're trying to figure out, okay, this account right here, Department of the United States Department of Defense, have they shown over time the willingness and ability to make good on this $10,000 obligation? Well, that's an easy conclusion to come to. But that's essentially the process. And it could be Department of Defense, which you kind of wake up in the morning and know they're good for the money.
Right.
Or it could be, it could be a private corporation, it could be a municipality, but at the end of the day, we're trying to figure out those two things.
Yeah. And so I would imagine when you're evaluating the customer, we'll just use Department of Defense, federal government, they pay their bills. But then you also talked about evaluating the management team and their ability to effectively manage and execute. I would imagine that those two things have to kind of mesh together, because I know on the government contracting side, yes, the government pays its bills, but if you're not managing your contract appropriately, things can fall apart.
That's right, and you hit the nail on the head. And so people often say to me, "Well, what do you care? You just advancing against the invoice." I
You
said,
got to
"Well,
get
I care
paid.
because if they can't manage it, the invoice won't get paid." So you're absolutely right. And that's why we look at these things because they can play, have a bearing on whether we get repaid or not.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So you work with companies of different sizes, I would imagine, in different phases of business. It's not just the um, companies that are just starting out, or is it companies that are
Hmm.
starting out? Tell us a little bit about the different phases of business that you typically would work with.
So yeah, it's interesting because we work with startups who are just very excited, and it's like anything, it's new, it's exciting,
Mhm.
and everything's in front of them, and they want to go out and get the carrot, and I love that energy that they oftentimes bring to the table. So we work with startups. But we also work with more mature companies that I'm sure you've seen this in your work. You see the company that's sort of hit the plateau, hit the plateau, hit the plateau.
Yeah.
They've done some reflecting. They've done some planning. They've grown as
Hmm.
executives, as a management team, and that growth and that introspection has allowed them to go from the plateau to the hockey stick growth.
Right.
And so um, that's another circumstance that we often finance because that hockey stick growth oftentimes, unless the company has the equity, the collateral, and in order to induce the bank to provide the line of credit, in some cases the bank is not yet ready to provide the credit sufficient to support that growth. And the other scenario we see is, if you stay in business long enough, you'll incur some sort of extraordinary shocks in the marketplace
Hmm.
that are external in nature.
Like this
That will,
pandemic.
yeah, exactly. That dislocate the market as you know it, and
Yeah.
some management teams are able to navigate that environment and actually profit as a result of it. Well, that's a pretty small percentage of the business population, and there is some percentage that no, they've done everything you could ask them to do, and the business still suffered adverse consequences,
Yeah.
especially financially, and as such find themselves in a situation where because of the losses that were incurred and because the balance sheet is not as strong as it once was, they may not be eligible to continue financing with the financing partner they've had over the years. And so oftentimes we come in and assess turnaround plans and provide the financing that allows the management team to execute on their turnaround plan.
Okay. So when you take a look at, companies that may be in the traditional financing arena, they're working with a line of credit with a bank, can
Mhm.
they partner with you at the same time? Do you typically find yourself in a position where they have a banker and they're working with you for, alternatively financing some of the receivables?
It depends on yes. It oftentimes depends upon the what type of relationship they have with the bank.
Okay.
There are a lot of instances where a borrower may have an SBA loan that is a term loan, but the bank understands that the small business is growing rapidly,
Mm.
and they need some type of revolving line of credit that they're not prepared to extend at this particular time. And so they may allow us to partner with the small business to finance that growth until which time the bank is willing to take over the entire credit relationship. It is conceptually that's not a difficult thing to accomplish conceptually. However, legally and practically, when you ask two lenders
Mm.
to negotiate and agree upon an agreement that spells out which collateral is theirs in the
Hmm.
event they need to look towards that for repayment, um, that's a tough negotiation.
Yeah.
And it takes a long time. So I always counsel. So a lot of entrepreneurs come to me and I say, I want you to think this before you think about anything else. How much time and money are you willing to dedicate to accomplishing this goal? And I ask that because when you have two lenders, lawyers, the entrepreneur's lawyers, but the entrepreneur's paying for all the lawyers, and a lot of time. As an entrepreneur, I've talked to entrepreneurs about it, and they've said no thanks, Kwesi. And that was really the right response.
Yeah.
This solution sounds great, but let me tell you why it's not so great for you at the moment.
Yeah. I never thought of it that way, but that makes sense. I mean, I know about the positioning, right? So we have to think
Right,
about the
right.
collateral, who gets what, basically when we get a divorce,
Mm-hmm.
who gets the
That's right.
asset.
That's right.
But I never
That's
really
right.
thought about the legalities of it and the fact that, really at the end of the day, the bill is with the small business, and you have to consider that. So,
Yeah. Anytime you're the borrower, in those negotiations, you're paying for the lender's legal fees.
yeah. Hmm. Okay. Very good. So tell me a little bit about, I'm a small business. I need to get financing. I want a contract.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't been able to negotiate a relationship with a bank. I'd like to, start financing my receivables. What would be the process of, me coming to work with you?
Generally, we generally have an initial conversation with the entrepreneur, just to understand the business, most importantly, understand the challenge that they seek to overcome. And then that helps us identify whether, we think we can provide a solution to that challenge. To the extent we can, we explain how we believe we can provide a solution. And, we talk through sort of what that will look like, the terms and conditions. And then after that conversation, I generally follow up with a request for information. That request, we ask them to fill out a 2-page application form. We ask them for most recent financial statements, accounts receivable, accounts payable agings, formation documents, and tax returns.
Okay.
Once we get that information, we can go through it. We're generally in a position where we can provide them with a proposal that outlines the terms and conditions under which we're prepared to provide financing. And to the extent that they're willing to move forward at that point, we go into our underwriting / documentation, which generally takes about, for the factoring product, that part takes about a week to 2 weeks before we're prepared to start financing invoices that they present to us.
Okay. So they have to come to you with an invoice, not with a contract. They have to come to you with an invoice.
Yes. So people often, I was on a phone call just last week, and I can generally sense when they're looking for an advance against the contract. And I have to tell them, well, I lend on collateral, and, or it's said differently, we're lending against an asset. I've never seen, a contract is not going to be on your balance sheet because you can't convert a contract into cash until you do some work, and
Right.
there's an obligation there. And someone someone has a contract, and there are some instances where they really do need that money in order to execute on the contract, but they're going to need either project financing or some type of equity
Mm-hmm.
in most cases in order to solve those problems.
Yeah.
Or in some cases, if they're just delivering product, purchase order financing, will probably solve the challenge that they have.
Who does purchase order financing? That's another alternative that I'm not familiar
Yeah.
with.
So purchase order finance companies are generally designed to there's there those kind of deliver product to their customers. Sometimes they can get a lot of business, but whoever the manufacturer is or supplier of the goods that they're selling will only extend them so much credit. So they run into the challenge. I can get the business, but I can't. I can't induce the supplier to ship the goods because I'm at my credit limit. Some of them, are so new that
Yeah.
they don't even have a credit limit. It's COD.
Right.
So the purchase order finance company will either provide a letter of credit or provide cash advances to the manufacturer to induce them to ship goods so that an entrepreneur can deliver on those goods and make good on their contractual obligations to their customers.
Awesome.
And
So the conversation we had about the having a contract is not an asset. I think that's important for us to talk a little bit deeper about because I've worked with companies who
sure.
have been awarded not purchase orders, what they call indefinite. Let's see, IDIQ, indefinite delivery, indefinite
Yep.
quantity contract. So there's no.
Mm-hmm.
There's a dollar value, but there's no work associated with it initially. You have to go out and hide, market
Right.
for the work,
Right.
but there's a contract in place, but there's really no value or no cause for billing.
Right.
But I've had companies, take that to the bank and say, "Hey, I want a line of credit. I want a contract." Well, great.
That's right. Well, in that instance, that's you have a hunting license.
Yes.
To pursue work that is let, under that IDIQ contract, and is generally a number of other successful offerors that are also bidding for task orders under that same IDIQ. Now, don't get me wrong, it's a wonderful thing that you have the opportunity to bid on this work. But you're absolutely right in that you need to understand and accept it for what it is. It's an opportunity, and until you take the next step and compete for that work and win that work, you don't have any revenue at that point.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's important to know. You need to know your terms and conditions. This goes back to the character and understanding your management team. And do you understand the whole concept of what you're embarking upon, what you're getting yourself into? And you want, it's good to have partners along the journey as you're scaling your business. And partners would be an organization like you, your financing partner, your financial management partner, somebody like me. And then others who are your legal partners who can help make certain that you have the full picture, that you're solid and that you're able to continue to move forward. So,
and I always tell entrepreneurs, it's much less expensive to call your advisors before you take action than it is when you realize, oh, I'm in trouble. I didn't understand what I was getting into. I didn't understand the pricing. And now I have a mess on aisle 7 that I'm asking them to clean up. I always tell them the cleanup is a lot more expensive than the risk mitigation.
That's the truth. That's the honest truth. So you either come in and you're working for a fraction of the time on the front end versus paying all 3 of those attorneys at the back end, right?
Right. That's right. Don't be penny wise, pound foolish. And don't take a lackadaisical approach. And you have to think about it, and don't be afraid to ask questions, and don't be afraid to, because you don't know. That not knowing is not the problem, but not admitting or not going to others for advice and counsel will get you into trouble.
Absolutely. So I'm going to ask you this question. We didn't prepare for it, but you just led into this one. So I'm coming to you as a small business. What questions should I be asking you? to make certain that I am, we're engaging
Right.
and creating an effective relationship with one another.
So the one of the first questions I usually get um, is, well, it's not even a question. Sometimes it's an objection. So in a factoring relationship, a entrepreneur should know that um, the factor generally provides financing on what we call notification basis.
Mm.
What does notification mean? Notification means the factor is notifying your customer that the accounts have been pledged in support of this financing facility. And as such, your customer should make the payment as directed by the factoring company. So people, and if you're an entrepreneur and you don't know, you should ask, because you've worked hard in order to establish a good relationship with your customer, and you've talked to me for 5 minutes. So you should ask the question. So, how does this work, and what do you plan? How do you plan on communicating? I oftentimes ask prospects, look, I'll send you a copy of the letter. You should read it over. I always encourage entrepreneurs. We ask them we give them a template, and we say, put this template on your letterhead and change it as you see fit. But it's an introductory letter introducing the factoring company to the customer. Just telling them, look, we're growing, and as such, we've entered into a financing relationship. We'd like to introduce them, et cetera, et cetera. So that's one of the questions. The other question is, what's the process? What is required of me to get into this relationship? And what's required for me to get out? You said something that was very insightful in the introductory, about businesses thinking about things from back to front, or think about the end, think about the exit.
Yeah.
And in the beginning, it will direct your steps, because if you think about the exit, then you won't. If the exit is north and you're walking south, you're going in the wrong direction, and you're not really sort of building value as you've defined it.
Yeah.
And so, if it's an entrepreneur's goal to use factoring for 24 to 36 months and graduate to a different type of financing, if you know that when you're talking to the factor, it is important to ask the factor, how do I exit the relationship, and how do the mechanics work?
Yeah.
And it's not oftentimes asked, because the entrepreneur is really singularly focused on, I gotta get this financing in place. If not, I'm not going to be able to pay my employees, and I'm gonna lose the business. And while that may be true, you still need to ask those questions. You need to know, because at some point down the road, if you want to exit, then you need to know how you accomplish that.
And I think that's important in every business transaction. You need to know your exit strategy. You need to know the process, the proper way. The contract, the most important day of every single contract that you will sign, every single agreement that you will sign, is today, right?
Right.
Before you put your signature on the document. So you have, as you said, you got to come to the table. You have to ask questions, even the most uncomfortable ones. You have to ask them. That is your point of negotiation.
Right.
Yeah. This is good. This is good stuff. I love it. I love it. And thank you for being an available resource.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, because businesses need this. And business happens. Sometimes it can be slow, but there are other times when it's so fast that we need to have these types of partnerships in place.
That's right.
Awesome.
And that's right. You can go from a time period where you're very slow. I suggest if you find yourself in that place, you do whatever you can to get your everything in order, because there probably will be a time right around the corner where the business is moving at breakneck speed.
For
And
sure.
you won't have time to get those ducks in order.
Well, I always say, the best time to ask for money is when you don't need it.
That's right.
It's the best time to ask for it.
Don't ask for the umbrella when it's raining. They're all sold out.
Right. Exactly. Hey, I'm gonna remember that one. Love it. Well, Kwesi, I appreciate you joining me today and having this
Absolutely. Thank
conversation.
you for having me.
Yes, we're going to definitely have to do this again, and talk a little bit more about, how we can help strengthen small businesses and keep the train moving towards that destination.
Well, I look forward to it, and happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate you. So
My
before we wrap up, tell us how others can learn a little bit more about you and a little bit more about Core Financial.
So I would encourage you to visit the website at www.korecc.com. There is plenty of information on Core, on financing for small business, and there's even a small bio of me. I think the picture was taken like 12 years ago, before I had any gray hair.
Listen, I've known you for many, many years, and the gray looks good on you.
Oh, thank you.
It looks good. So, well, again, my friend, thank you so much. I appreciate you joining us, and I look forward to us reconnecting again very soon and
Absolutely.
sharing more great knowledge and wisdom and insight for small businesses as they continue to scale.
I look forward to it. Thank you, and happy birthday again.
Thank you. We'll talk soon. All right. So that was good information, guys. A lot of times we feel stuck, right? We feel as though we can't move forward because we don't have access to the things that we need in the immediate moment. Some may be saying no to us in that time, in that moment, but there are alternatives, and you've got to know that they exist. Finding ways to finance your dream versus draining the assets that you've already built are extremely important to you as a business as you continue to grow and increase your legacy. There are resources out there that can help you, that are there, that can move fast, that can move quickly. You just have to do your homework. You have to be willing to ask the right questions. You have to be willing to put the team in place to help you effectively move forward. So just understand again that there are options, there are alternatives, and we can continue to scale the business and continue to build that legacy. I want to thank you all for joining me today. I will be back next week for another conversation around money matters. And next week, I'll be talking about ways in which to identify the right financial resources to help you manage your finances internally, from your accountant to your tax accountant to your CPA, your CFO. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about what you should be looking for. I will be back this time next week, 5 p.m. next Wednesday, and I hope to see you then. And until then, I am Lisa Anderson, Strategic Business Advisor and Virtual CFO with Anavo Transformation Solutions. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you back again next week. Bye-bye.